The last time I was here was December 26th, 2023. And that's the longest span I've ever had away. And then we moved 15 minutes north back July 1st, actually. We're up in Cowie, right next to Cowie Mound, overlooking it. But that last time I was here, the talk was about living a life on purpose. And I got more like feedback just from the people here, because none of my audio equipment worked right that day, the video, but they recorded it and it's on the website. And the whole gist of it is that the mistake people make about purpose is that they think it's about what you're doing. And it has nothing to do with that. It's about being present in the moment, in the now, regardless of conditions or, we tend to confuse it with assignments. And it was perfect what you said about Willie, because people will be like, well, I mean, he was Willie. There's a certain, there seems to be like a flavor of attacking people in our culture at the moment, but there's like two people that seem to be that I think if people went after those two, I think our country might revolt a little, and that's Dolly Parton and Willie Nelson. But Dolly, I mean, I can't even imagine. You can't even add up the things that she's done, and most of it people don't know about. So, yeah. So I worked all week to preserve my voice, which is why it's all burned out right now. Told my wife, I'm going to make sure my voice is okay for Sunday. And then last night we were in Asheville at the Orange Peel for one of my favorite singers ever, Ani DeFranco. It was my 18th show of hers, but I hadn't seen her in 28 years. There was a point where my friends and I would follow her tour bus from shows in the mid-90s. And of course I screamed like my 2-year-old girl and blew my voice out. I get up this morning, my wife's wondering where Darth Vader is in the room, James Earl Jones. But it was amazing because there's a lot of things I didn't know was going to happen. A dear friend, one of our first friends when we moved to Asheville was a guy named Bo Hess, Roberto, who's now a city council member. And he led a team to present Ani with the key to the city of Asheville yesterday. And it was really cool because we were right in the front. And then there was a couple at the end of the show that got engaged right in front of us. So it was just one of those interesting nights. So I have a bowl here that I was going to play, and I brought it, but I'm not going to play it. A dear friend of mine was going to be here today, and I wrangled with Mr. Fancy Pants to be able to fill in, for him for Michael today. Michael Murphy Burke. As a matter of fact, I think the last video that was uploaded to the center's YouTube page like a year ago was Michael when he was here, and he had a heart attack. He was in intensive care for months, but he was going to be coming up here today and spend the day with our family up at our house, stay overnight before he went back to Atlanta tomorrow. It's wild because everything I had done in Atlanta for 10 years, Michael was right next to me. So if you watch any of the videos or the photos, he was always there. And he'd be over there with these little bowls going like, wah, 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 all this wild stuff that he would do. I thought maybe I should bring a bowl. Well, what about, I'll bring chimes too. I should bring a rattle if I'm going to bring, and maybe bring the Tibetan bowl. And then it's Dale, hold off a second here. And I brought one bowl, but I'm going to allow it to be silent because the 12th of last month, Michael launched into his next journey. So I'm here. I'm here for my buddy. Yeah, Michael was one of those interesting guys that it wasn't about tasks or doing or, first I'll say this a little bit, and this whole thing's not necessarily going to be about Michael. It's really about you. But he had a little bit of a Cajun drawl. Ah, man, you know how it is. That would kind of slip in sometimes because he was from New Orleans, if I'm saying it properly. But, you know, the question I want to ask to kind of launch here is, what's generally your default response? What does that mean? Let's say and I'm not going into politics, not touching it, except for saying this, elections or stuff that happens in the family or things with the neighbor. You know, what's the default response you tend to fall into? Do you tend to go to empowerment, or do you tend to kind of go, well, of course, and just sort of lay down like a beautiful dog? You know, think about that. What's the default response? And then, you know, me doing this for so long, I'm into the middle of my 30th year of doing this, whatever I do, I don't know. But like I said, it's not about what you're doing. But what's really interesting, though, is like being involved in what people would call New Thought or New Age, whatever. And there was something that was really unique about Michael, was his kinetic positivity. Now, it's different than what a lot of people think of as positive. And here's the point I'm making. You know, what I think we tend to do is what we think we should do. So, like as an example, if we feel ourselves kind of go low, we kind of force ourselves high. I call that false positive or prop up positive. It's an interesting thing, though. Like, why would we do that? What do you think would be reasons for doing that? Why would we, you know, when we start just kind of going down into a low thing, we kind of put, like, as an example of this, somebody comes up and says, oh, how you doing? I haven't seen you in a while. I'm doing good. But in the back of your brain, there's this little voice, and he's got a little pitchfork. And he's like, actually, my back hurts. My back hurts. You know, I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent. The check's going to bounce, blah, 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 blah. But then out here, anybody ever met one of those that like prop up positive so much that you know it's just fake? Yes. And it's all about their pearly whites, and they'll shove them in your face, and it can almost become, I'm going to throw a big word out here for this, a little bit psychotic. You know, I've worked with people like that over the years in the sort of spiritual community. And it's an interesting thing because you can't hide, regardless of how much sugar you polish on top, you can't hide what you're authentically feeling. And it's a funny thing, like one of the things that, you know, working with Aramaic for decades, deeper than most people would ever go in 20 lifetimes, it's like one of the glitches, in a sense, in the translation, there's so many, in the translation from Aramaic into Greek or Aramaic into Latin, English, whatever, is the idea that you get everything that you pray for, everything you ask for. But it's a fun word, kolhun. It's an interesting word in Aramaic. It doesn't necessarily just mean everything. Like, I prayed for a pony, you know? I prayed for like a shiny red bike. I didn't get it. But it's an interesting word because it really has a deeper meaning. What it really means is the entire thing. Have you seen it yet? Did you get it? Well, there you go.
Amazing.
So what I'm saying is you don't necessarily get every little thing you're asking for on the surface. You get the entire thing. I want you to think of it kind of like an iceberg, and I've said this in here before. We tend to erroneously think of prayer as the tip of the iceberg, the words we send out into the world. But that is a micro sliver of the totality of your prayer, because your prayer isn't just the words that you're saying. It's what's deeper down in the recesses of your being. As an example, you know, and this is what made Michael kind of unique. If someone comes up to me and says, oh, I'm attracting a car, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Or they say, I'm manifesting a car. I'm like, oh, that's interesting too. Do you know what manifest means? What does manifest mean?
It exists here.
It exists here.
And now.
In Bill's hand.
Right there.
Destiny.
Come into being.
Come into being. None of these are correct, except for that one.
What? What did she say?
So you can't manifesting because that's a continuous thing. Manifest is it exists.
Manifest, manus festus. Manus means what?
Yeah.
Hand. Festus.
Make.
Technically, it means obvious. It means as obvious as my hand. Colloquially, from the Latin, manifest means obvious. So regardless of the sliver of the 0.01% of what you're praying for, that's not the totality of your prayer. You don't get necessarily just what you pull off on the top and throw out with your words. It's what are you really feeling in relation to the subject matter. So if someone comes up to me and says they're manifesting a car, what's obvious to them?
They don't have one.
I don't have a car. Even worse, I'm attracting a car. So? Who cares? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there was just something different in the neurons of Michael about disempowerment that he literally, it was amazing how he had this, like I say, it was a kinetic positivity that he didn't just kind of prop up positive and put sugar on top of it because that's what he's supposed to do as a spiritual being. He really was in that and in a place where he literally, he wouldn't even let it hook him in the first place, if you understand what I'm saying. You know, it's funny because there's a lot of suffering in the world right now, but the biggest cause of suffering, the biggest cause of your suffering is them. You think it's them. I don't care who them is. Her or him. There's a lot of hims right now. But the fact that you think somebody outside of you is the cause of what you're feeling. Yeah, I put a post up on Facebook last night before the Ani show that, like, within 2 minutes it had 40 responses, was shared 4 times, and then it stopped because Facebook they throttled it, which means they removed it from the news feed. And it was like I wasn't just talking about it going to this concert last night. It's funny. I talked about how when I was at an Ani show, Ani DeFranco is her name, like years ago, just doing her thing, very different from everybody else. A bunch of women came up to me and they were like, well, have you been baptized yet? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, Lee press-on nails and electrical tape? And I'm like, no. But there was one particular night, there was one particular evening where she played a song that, let's just put it this way, a lot of record companies wanted her. And she wrote this one song called The Million You Never Made. That was this like clawing, snarling, raging thing that builds up to this huge crescendo, and there was all this rage in it. Funny, like people told me like all the time, this goes right in with the Michael thing. They tell me all the time like I shouldn't listen to like heavy metal music or something, and they'll talk about like the hidden messages in water, Masaru Emoto, how they put heavy metal, they put Black Sabbath and Slayer next to water, and then they froze it.
Yeah.
And they say that's the effect of heavy metal on water. And I said, it's not. That's the effect of the researcher who is playing the heavy metal on the water. Because the observer cannot be removed from the situation. And I'll say this, without heavy metal, I'd be dead. It's an interesting thing. Michael, when I talk about this, it allowed me to let emotions out and things that I could never feel in any other capacity, trying to be a good kid, trying to be a good person, trying to listen to enough New Age music. But yet it was funny, in the 1980s, men dressed as women with like big teeth and all this weird stuff going on, in music at the time, that allowed me to feel the parts of myself that were not okay. And slowly over the last few years, I've been bringing my childhood into my work. My childhood was not okay. And I'm not going into the details of it. Parts of it were. 7 years old, I'm out literally communicating with light beings in the forest in southern New Jersey. And I spent almost all my time outside because of all the trauma in the house. On the surface, we had like the perfect family. Not so much underneath, especially not with me, who was kind of the pincushion. Funny that, I even found out last year that my dad was not my dad. It was actually his best friend. But it didn't matter because my dad was pushed out when I was 5, and a drunken alcoholic stepfather who, I'm not going into the details of that, came in. So what I'm saying is when you're asking and, thinking that setting time aside for prayer, understand you are never not praying. Everything you think and feel and emote, even if you're not aware of it, is an active manifestation. Just going back to the idea of the baptism, there was one particular night that Ani played this song, and it was called "The Million You Never Made," and I just happened to be right in front of her underneath, and she was like snarling and clawing at this guitar. And what she does, she still does it today, she super glues Lee press-on nails on her fingers, and then she wraps it with electrical tape. So instead of using guitar picks, she kind of plays like this. And there was this point where I'm just looking up at her, and we locked eyes, and it was almost like we slide into this other dimension, and I'm getting just showered with Lee press-on nails and electrical tape. And it was like I realized it was okay to be not okay, which takes me back to Michael. How could he be so kinetically positive? How can this guy be around people that like nobody else can be around and still be like, Was it a lot of Mardi Gras? Was it the New Orleans thing? Not exactly. In deep conversations with Michael, he suffered a lot too. But there was a certain point where he allowed himself to just let go. It's not as easy as it sounds in a sense, but yet it's the simplest thing you can ever do in your life. And it's a fun thing because we spend our lives creating a persona of who we think we should be and what's spiritual and what fits within our religion or philosophy or whatever you want to call it. But the only way to actually fully let go is to let go of all of it. But it's an odd thing because when you let go of who you think you are, you feel like you're dying. And I went through a long suicidal period, especially in my teen years, of just, without cursing, just screw it all. Just forget it. Screw it. But that's not the letting go part. You're here for such a deep purpose. And your purpose is exactly what Bill said right before I came up, to wholly and fully be you. Is everybody breathing? There's stuff coming up for people in the room. It's okay. It's really freaking hot in here. I'm just kidding. Put a fan on me. But I want to read a couple pieces for you to kind of bring a lot of this together. The first one, the last time I had actually talked with Michael was about 5 days before they found him. The last time we had messaged was on the 6th of February, and he sent me 2 poems. And it's a fun thing, like as soon as I found out, I immediately called my friend Bob Simon. I'm like, am I living in some kind of a nightmare? What happened? He's like, no, it's real. And I'm like, and immediately my brain was like, did I tell him I love him? The last time we talked, the last time we messaged. And it's an interesting thing about Michael. He always said, I love you. Always. And you know where that comes from? It came from sitting with his own trauma. And it came with sitting with such tremendous pain of some of his experience in his life that they almost killed him. He didn't talk to many people about it. But what an honor to, and I'm like, what is it? And I'm looking at him like, what makes you've seen the picture? What makes you smile like that? I took this photo right that's at Unity North Atlanta, where I've spoken a bazillion times. I always had Michael beside me, but this was actually in the Peace Chapel at Unity North Atlanta in Marietta, Georgia, right after we completed filming of a video for a friend of mine, Bob Sima. And Michael was just talking, and I had my camera and all my video equipment, and I just started taking pictures of him. Because I'm like, look at this. You can see it. You can see that positivity. Well, I want to share with you 2 poems he sent to me just a few days before he graduated. First one's from him, and it's about that snowstorm we had back in January, where it actually snowed in Florida. Quite a bit, actually, more than it had in quite a while, in decades. So this is called A Prophet of Shadows. Snow moon moving across the sky, warming the chill from a winter going by, where we saw snow on the beaches of our southern coast, an occurrence as rare as the ghost of a ghost. Michael wrote this. An apparition of a superstition, a requisition of a juxtaposition. That's the Nolans in them. Is it strange weather or a cosmic sign? Whether it's strange or not, it's always in line. The moon is our teacher, a prophet of shadows, resurrecting our light, resonating our whims and woes, showing us in its phases how we must wax and wane, acknowledging our fullness and our emptiness. And how every stage we must claim, we cycle through our life and deaths, our weather changing with our every breath. Through hail, rain, and sleet we go, celebrating our lives under this moon of snow. I don't know if he knew what was in process for him. I don't know. But the fun thing is, he was always like this. He was always sending me poems. He was always texting me, leaving me voicemails, or sending me messages telling me he loved me, and sharing his poetry, and sharing other people's poetry. We would stay with him, like when I was at appeared at the Chantlanta Sacred Music Festival last year. We stayed with Michael in his big sound healing temple in his home. And like I said, he was going to be coming up to see us. And it's like today. And then he was going to spend the evening with our family up on the mountain, like 15 minutes north of here. And it's like he was just always there. And he was always on purpose. And maybe on some level I took for granted that he was always going to be there. So maybe I didn't necessarily think, hey, I love you. 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 There's one, deep in peace right now. I'm just saying, consider your default response with a lot of what's happening in the world right now. And what was the exact quote from Willie? live like it's your last day because one day it just might be, or something along those lines. I couldn't have more possibly picked a more perfect song, before I came up here. Little old Willie, what is he, 91 or 90? He's 90. I think they're doing like a big party for him, but and what makes Willie so amazing? He's Willie. Bless you. That's your allotment. You're only allowed one, so I'm just kidding. No. But I want to just leave you with one other poem that he sent me, and I want you to really feel this out. Consider. If you think they are against you, maybe they are. But that's probably exactly how they want you to feel, regardless of who they are in your life. It means they control you. However, rather than just sort of knee-jerk reaction going into attack mode, maybe you could kind of try to not just not leave words unsaid, but learn to be a Michael in that sense, which is what I mean by that. Rather than going low and throwing the grit and the slop from your, the not great experiences on your life onto other people and saying it's because of them that you're feeling it, maybe there's a way to actually, it's called forgiveness in Aramaic, the word shpuk. It literally means to remove the root of my suffering. It does not mean to pardon someone. It has nothing to do with forgiveness. Pardoning is not a bad thing. But that's a Latin idea, pardon. Because they may be pushing your buttons, but they didn't install them. So, what I'm saying is, you're here for a reason right now. Your life has a very specific purpose, and that purpose is who you are, not what you're doing. But it's you showing up clean and clear. It's you showing up in the clarity of the eternity, of the light of the absolute. Not from the default of wallowing down into the most horrifying moments of your life. How can you actually turn that into a place of empowerment? Because until you learn how to do that and come forth in clarity and stand in the essence of love rather than attack anything against it, they, whoever they are, has control over you. And that's exactly what they want. But you came here to help navigate the cosmic shift. Every single one of you. You chose to be here at this exact moment in history. I've seen a lot of people, and I understand it. A lot of things are it's all inside out and upside down in that sense. A lot of rights look like they're being taken away. Yet at the same time, it will never be the hostility in you that's going to make a difference with that. It's going to be, how can I come forth in a true place of love and empowerment and step forth as a light rather than just slinging darkness. So I want to leave you with this poem. This is not from Michael, but he sent this to me with the other one at the same time. It's called Before the Coffee Gets Cold. And this is from Toshikazu Kawaguchi. I did it. I practiced that for like a week, by the way. Feel into this. Breathe. Don't leave anything for later. Later, the coffee gets cold. Later, you lose interest. Later, the day turns into night. Later, people grow up. Later, people grow old. Later, life goes by. Later, you regret not doing something when you had the chance. Life is a fleeting dance, a delicate balance of moments that unfold before us, never to return in quite the same way again. Regret is a bitter pill to swallow, a weight that bears down upon the soul with the burden of missed chances and unspoken words. So let us not leave anything for later. Let us seize the moments as they come with hearts open and arms outstretched to embrace the possibilities that lie before us. For in the end, it is not the things we did that we regret, but the things we left undone, the words left unspoken, the dreams left unfulfilled. Remember, pay attention. Pay attention with everything that's happening. Show up from a place of empowerment and love. Because the tenacity of clarity will always overcome the default mechanism of hostility. Always. Might not look like it at certain points, but stick with it. We're here for a reason, a very specific one. And it's not, again, what we're doing. It's showing up fully as ourselves without all of the cross interference of the suffering in our lives. But that also means allowing the suffering to inform the empathy and the compassion of how we proceed. It ain't over. It just started. And as long as Bill walks around with those pants, we'll be fine.
Thanks, Dale.
I love you all.